Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a heated conversation, defending a point with conviction, only to realize later you weren't even sure if you believed it yourself? Or perhaps you've noticed patterns in your life, mistakes you keep making, hoping that this time, the outcome will be different. It's frustrating, isn't it? Yet, these moments hold a mirror to a deeper truth about human nature. A Zen master once said, "True wisdom begins when we accept how much we don't know." This simple statement carries profound meaning. In Zen, foolishness isn't viewed as an unchangeable flaw. It's not a label for the unfortunate or a marker of permanent failure. Instead, it's seen as a temporary state of ignorance, one that thrives on ego and a lack of self-awareness. The good news? Like clouds that obscure the sun, foolishness can be cleared away with understanding and reflection. But here's the catch. Recognizing foolishness isn't about pointing fingers or judging others. It's about turning the spotlight inward. The path to wisdom begins with humility, acknowledging our blind spots and accepting that growth is a continuous journey. It's in these quiet moments of honesty that transformation begins. In today's journey, we'll uncover 7 signs of foolishness, traits that each of us might recognize in ourselves. But this isn't about criticism, it's about empowerment. As we explore these signs, we'll follow the story of a young seeker whose quest for clarity reveals timeless lessons that can inspire us all. So, stay with me until the end. This isn't just another video. It's an invitation to see yourself and the world through a clearer lens. What you learn today might just be the key to breaking free from old patterns and stepping into a more mindful, fulfilled life. Ready to begin? Let's dive in. 1. The illusion of always being right. The first sign of foolishness is the unyielding need to always be right, a trait that ties one's self-worth to their opinions. For the foolish, admitting wrongness feels akin to conceding defeat, a crack in the armor of their perceived strength. Beneath this lies a deep-rooted fear of vulnerability. To admit being wrong is to open oneself to uncertainty, a state the ego fiercely resists. Once, in a small village, a farmer believed he possessed the power to summon rain through rituals. When a relentless drought struck, he spent days performing his ceremonies. As the skies remained clear, the farmer grew frustrated, not with his methods, but with the wind, the gods, and even his neighbors, whom he blamed for disrupting his sacred energy. Despite clear evidence that his rituals had no effect, he doubled down, refusing to consider alternative solutions. His ego became his cage, locking him in a cycle of denial and wasted effort. The villagers, observing his stubbornness, tried to offer advice, methods like water conservation or crop rotation, but he dismissed them as ignorant. In his mind, admitting fault was unthinkable, for it would shatter his identity as a wise and powerful man. I can't help but recall a moment in my own life when I fell into a similar trap. In a professional meeting, I defended a flawed approach, even as mounting evidence showed its shortcomings. Midway through, I realized I was wrong, but instead of conceding, I pressed on. My pride whispered that admitting my mistake would undermine my credibility. Later, as I reflected, it became clear how much energy I had wasted protecting my ego instead of seeking the best solution. That moment taught me that pride can be the greatest barrier to growth. Humility is the antidote to this form of foolishness. The wise understand that their worth is not diminished by admitting mistakes. In fact, it grows. Practicing stillness and self-reflection allows us to separate our identity from our opinions. The next time you feel the urge to defend your stance, ask yourself, am I fighting for truth, or am I shielding my ego? By embracing vulnerability and seeking clarity, we can unlock the growth and wisdom that only humility can provide. 2. Repeating mistakes without learning. Einstein's observation that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results perfectly encapsulates one of the core traits of foolishness: the refusal to learn from mistakes. A foolish person sees their failures not as lessons but as temporary setbacks to be bulldozed through with persistence. While determination is often lauded as a virtue, when applied without reflection, it becomes a blind force leading to repeated failures. In a small village, A young man needed to cross a river to reach a market on the other side. The only bridge available was old and partially broken, but he was convinced it would hold if he tried hard enough. On his first attempt, the bridge gave way, plunging him into the water. Undeterred, he returned the next day, repeating the same process. Day after day, the same scene unfolded. While others discovered alternate routes downstream, the young man stubbornly clung to his belief. This time, it will work. His refusal to acknowledge the reality of the bridge's state left him wet, frustrated, and stranded. While his peers successfully crossed the river using different means, his misplaced persistence kept him trapped in a cycle of failure, unable to see the necessity of change. I remember vividly an early chapter in my career where I launched a project that failed due to poor planning. The first time it fell apart, I blamed external factors, timing, lack of support, or market conditions. Instead of reassessing my approach, I stubbornly launched a similar initiative, convinced that working harder would bring success. Predictably, the second attempt failed too. It wasn't until I paused to evaluate what had gone wrong, lack of clear objectives and ignoring feedback, that I was able to approach the problem with fresh eyes and achieve the desired outcome. Failures are not obstacles, they are opportunities for growth. Each failure holds a mirror to our blind spots, illuminating areas where change is necessary. The wise embrace these moments, treating them as teachers rather than punishments. The next time you encounter failure, take a step back and ask, what can this teach me? Recognizing the lessons hidden in our mistakes transforms them into stepping stones toward wisdom and success. By letting go of stubbornness and embracing adaptability, we open ourselves to growth and new possibilities. 3. The trap of superiority. A hallmark of foolishness is the need to feel superior to others, a trap where one's sense of worth hinges on comparison. The foolish person mistakenly believes their success is amplified only when others are diminished. This mindset not only erodes inner peace, but also blinds them to the joy and abundance in their own lives. In a bustling marketplace, two merchants vied for the title of wealthiest trader in town. The first merchant, obsessed with maintaining his edge, meticulously tracked his competitors' every move. If the other purchased a new cart, he bought two. If the other expanded his shop, he doubled his efforts to do the same. Though his business flourished, he found no satisfaction in his accomplishments. Sleepless nights were spent plotting his next move, not to improve his own life, but to outshine his rival. Meanwhile, the second merchant remained focused on serving his customers and nurturing his family. Unconcerned with competition, he built a life full of contentment and connection. Years later, the first merchant looked back on his achievements with an unsettling realization. He had accumulated wealth, but no happiness. His obsession with superiority had robbed him of the very peace he sought. This story resonates with my younger self. In my 20s, I frequently compared my achievements to those of my peers. If someone was promoted, I felt a twinge of envy, as though their success diminished my worth. The constant need to measure up left me drained and unfulfilled. It wasn't until I began practicing gratitude, actively acknowledging the blessings in my own life, that I realized how much energy I had wasted on comparison. Life isn't a race, it's a shared journey. When I shifted my mindset from competition to collaboration, I discovered the profound joy of celebrating others' successes as if they were my own. True contentment lies not in outshining others, but in recognizing the abundance already present in your life. Gratitude is the antidote to the trap of superiority. It shifts focus from what you lack to what you have. By celebrating the victories of others, you cultivate a mindset of abundance, reinforcing the truth that there is enough success to go around. Instead of measuring your worth through comparison, find joy in the shared victories of those around you. In doing so, you'll discover a peace that transcends competition. 4. Talking more, listening less. The fool often mistakes the act of speaking for the act of understanding. They dominate conversations, eager to showcase their knowledge, yet fail to recognize that true learning lies in listening. In their eagerness to be heard, they leave little room for others to contribute, missing the opportunity to gain new insights. A curious student approached a Zen master, asking for guidance. However, rather than waiting for the master's teaching, the student bombarded him with endless questions, interjecting with their own thoughts at every opportunity. The master, calm and patient, said nothing. Instead, he began to pour tea into the student's cup. As the cup filled to the brim, the tea began to overflow. The student exclaimed, "Master, the cup is full. It can't hold any more." The master replied with a gentle smile, "And so is your mind. How can it hold wisdom when it's already full?" This simple yet profound lesson illustrated that without creating space for new knowledge, one remains stuck in their current understanding. I have found myself in the role of the student more times than I care to admit. In conversations, I would often jump to share my thoughts or respond before the other person finished speaking. My intent was not malicious. I simply wanted to contribute. However, this habit closed me off to what others were offering. It was only when I began practicing active listening that I realized the depth of understanding I had missed. The wisdom others shared was far greater than my need to be heard. Listening is more than the passive act of hearing. It requires being fully present. It means setting aside your internal dialogue and focusing entirely on the speaker. By doing so, you create space not just for others to share, but also for your own growth. The next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to interrupt or dominate. Instead, listen with curiosity. Ask open-ended questions and take a moment to absorb what's being said before responding. You might be surprised at how much you can learn, not just about the other person, but about yourself. True wisdom often comes not from speaking, but from the silence that allows you to truly listen. 5. Reacting without reflection. Impulsive reactions are among the clearest signs of foolishness, driven by unchecked emotions and a lack of reflection. When we act hastily, the consequences often unfold in ways we later regret. The wise, in contrast, understand the importance of creating space between stimulus and response, a moment to think, to reflect, and to choose the most thoughtful course of action. In a quiet town, a man heard a troubling rumor about his closest friend. The whispers suggested betrayal, and without seeking clarification, his anger flared. Feeling hurt and betrayed, he confronted his friend with harsh words, severing their long-standing bond in the heat of the moment. Days later, he discovered the rumor was entirely false, a fabrication by someone with ill intentions. But by then, the damage was done. The trust between them was shattered, and no apology could fully mend what was lost. This story underscores how impulsive reactions, driven by emotion rather than clarity, can leave lasting scars. A moment of reflection, a question asked, or a pause before speaking might have saved their friendship. I recall a time when I hastily responded to an email at work that I interpreted as accusatory. Without seeking clarification or considering the sender's perspective, I replied angrily, defending myself against perceived criticism. It wasn't until I reread the email later, with a calmer mind, that I realized their message wasn't an attack. It was simply a poorly worded request. My impulsive reaction strained our professional relationship, creating unnecessary tension that took weeks to repair. I regretted not taking a moment to breathe and assess the situation before responding. The pause between stimulus and response is where wisdom resides. Before reacting to a situation, take 3 deep breaths. This simple act anchors you in the present and creates the space needed to think clearly. Ask yourself, do I fully understand what's happening? Am I responding to the situation or to my emotions? Practicing mindfulness in moments of intensity helps you avoid rash decisions and fosters thoughtful responses. Over time, this habit strengthens your ability to navigate challenges with clarity and grace. Wisdom isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about letting reflection guide your actions. In that space of stillness, you gain the power to choose your response wisely, avoiding the regrets that impulsive reactions so often bring. 6. Resistance to change. Resistance to change is a hallmark of foolishness. Rooted in the comfort of familiarity, the foolish cling to routines, traditions, and methods, even when they no longer serve their purpose. Yet, growth demands a willingness to let go of what is outdated and to embrace the unknown with courage and trust. Change is not the enemy. It is the bridge to transformation. In a small rural village, a farmer struggled with dwindling harvests year after year. He planted the same crops, using the same techniques passed down by his ancestors. Despite repeated failures, he stubbornly insisted, "This is how I've always done it." When neighbors suggested diversifying his crops or using modern farming techniques, he dismissed them, unwilling to deviate from the practices he knew. As seasons passed, the farmer's fields grew less fertile, his yields smaller, and his livelihood diminished. Meanwhile, others in the village who embraced change, experimenting with new methods and crops, thrived. His refusal to adapt left him in poverty, not because the opportunity for growth wasn't there, but because he was too afraid to step into the unknown. I once found myself in a similar trap, resisting the idea of meditation for years. I dismissed it as a waste of time, convinced that being productive required constant action. The thought of sitting still felt counterintuitive, but as stress and mental clutter began to take their toll, I decided to give it a chance. To my surprise, meditation brought clarity and peace I never imagined possible. What I once saw as a threat to productivity became the foundation for a calmer, more focused life. My resistance to change had held me back far longer than I realized. Change is not a loss. It is an invitation to evolve. Trust the flow of life and release the things that no longer serve you. Growth requires courage, not to hold on, but to let go. Ask yourself, am I clinging to the familiar because it's safe, or because it's still beneficial? The wise understand that every ending is a beginning in disguise. Embrace change as an ally, not an adversary. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but within discomfort lies the potential for transformation. The sooner you welcome change, the sooner you unlock the growth waiting on the other side. 7. Harsh judgment of others. Harsh judgment of others often reveals more about the critic than the one being criticized. Those quick to find flaws in others often overlook their own shortcomings, failing to recognize that judgment is a reflection of inner insecurities. This tendency clouds clarity, fosters division, and robs us of the opportunity to practice compassion and understanding. There was once a woman who frequently complained about her neighbor's laundry, which she could see hanging on a clothesline outside. "Look at those stains," she would scoff. "Doesn't she know how to clean properly?" Day after day, the woman voiced her criticisms, convinced of her neighbor's carelessness. One morning, the woman decided to clean her own windows. As she wiped away months of accumulated grime, she suddenly realized the truth. The stains she had been criticizing were never on her neighbor's laundry. They were on her own window. In her rush to judge, she failed to see that her own perspective was clouded, both literally and figuratively. This story reminds me of moments in my own life. I used to judge my colleagues' work habits, often assuming they weren't as diligent as I was. Yet, as I reflected, I saw parallels between their struggles and my own. The deadlines I missed, the days I felt unmotivated, these were the very things I criticized in others. Once I acknowledged this, my perspective shifted. Instead of judging, I began offering support, which strengthened our relationships and fostered mutual growth. Judgment rarely arises from wisdom. It stems from a lack of self-awareness. The next time you find yourself criticizing someone, pause and ask, what does this say about me? Often, what irritates us in others highlights unresolved issues within ourselves. Compassion is the antidote to judgment. When we view others through a lens of empathy, we open ourselves to understanding their struggles, hopes, and challenges. This practice not only dissolves judgment but also fosters deeper connections and personal growth. Imagine how the world might change if, instead of pointing out others' flaws, we focused on cleaning our own windows first. The clarity that follows allows us to see not only others but also ourselves with greater kindness and truth. The young seeker discovered a profound truth. Wisdom is not a fixed destination, but an ongoing journey, a practice woven into the fabric of daily life. Each evening, they sat in quiet reflection, revisiting the lessons they had learned. They asked themselves simple yet transformative questions. Did I cling to being right today? Did I learn from my mistakes or repeat them? Did I compare myself to others or or celebrate their successes? Did I listen more than I spoke? Did I pause before reacting, or let my emotions take control? Did I embrace change, or resist it out of fear? Did I judge others harshly, or practice compassion? These moments of reflection became their compass, guiding them away from patterns of foolishness and toward the clarity of self-awareness. Over time, they saw growth, not in leaps, but in steady, meaningful steps. Each mistake became an opportunity to learn, each moment of awareness a seed of wisdom. These 7 signs of foolishness are not just markers of others' behaviors, they are mirrors, reflecting parts of ourselves we often overlook. If one or more of these lessons resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Pick one sign and commit to being more mindful of it in your daily life. Small, consistent changes can transform how you see yourself and the world around you. Wisdom grows when shared. Leave a comment below and share your insights. What sign spoke to you the most? And how do you plan to address it? Your journey could inspire someone else to begin theirs. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, we can walk this path of awareness, learning and growing one mindful step at a time. Remember, the journey toward wisdom doesn't require perfection. It simply asks for presence. Let's take that first step today.